Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Welcome to another edition of Uncover California. I'm Lori Mills, your host. You guys, I just got back from the California GOP convention, and we have new leadership, and I want to congratulate each and everyone that was elected. Corinne Rakin is our new chair, and the one I got really excited about was Jack Guerrero, who's a dear friend of mine who wants to doge California, as our new treasurer. It was a fun, eventful weekend. And there were protesters there. I went outside. I got to talk to one of those hands-made tail women. And I had one crazy woman try to blow her nose on me. I'm not even kidding you. Anyways, it was a great time. We got a lot done. And we will be fighting for this state. You guys, we are at a place where if everybody gets involved, we can take her back. But you can't be tepid. You cannot sit back. And you've got to walk your own neighborhood. You've got to make phone calls. You've got to get behind some of your favorite candidates in your area. So today on our show, we have great people coming on. My East Coast sister, the Midnight Rider, Karli Bonn'e, will be on our first segment, and we're going to talk everything Trump and everything that's going on right now. And then our second guest is going to be Susan Crabtree of RealClearPolitics and Jedd McFatter from Peter Schweizer's Government Accountability Institute. They've written a new book together called Fool's Gold, and it is going to be great. It's going to show connections between Gavin Newsom and the CCP. So stay tuned. It's going to be a hot one. We'll be right back. Hey, do you guys have a startup business, or do you want to break into our Patriot alternate economy? Well, now's your chance. We have a couple spots opening up. And if you'd like to advertise with Uncover Cali, go ahead and go to uncovercali.com, and there is a tip line. Go ahead and drop us an email. We'll set up a little call with you and get your products on the air. Let's grow together. So I am so excited to bring in my East Coast sister and somebody that makes me laugh all the time on X, and we're going to check in coast to coast. Karli Bonn'e, the Midnight Rider. Welcome back to Uncover California.
Thank you, my California sister. You know, we're East and West. We're still friends.
Yeah. Well, what's funny we both live in the woke states of America, which is so sad because I don't know about New York, but here voting is not fair. We're consistently fighting the woke-topians, Gavin Newsom, who is a liar. Why do you think Steve Bannon and our friends are going on to this man's podcast to make him look legitimate? The man is a liar.
Well, they didn't really make him look legitimate. You know, they went on there and they're showing the left what the right is all about.
Yeah, that's true.
Because today, if you see the video, he had Tampon Tim on, who wants to cage wrestle MAGA supporters. And Tyrus from the Gutfeld show, you know, Tyrus the wrestler.
Yeah.
He already put out a post that said, anytime, Tim, you know, calling them out. You want to wrestle? Let's wrestle.
So that's funny.
So it just shows what a liar he is by him doing this. And then after having Charlie Kirk on and Steve Bannon, who are legit, and you can't say their talking points are wrong or what's, you know, you can't argue it. And he does the weird hand moves. Tyrus was so funny. It almost went viral. He said that Gavin Newsom and his hand things, it looked like he was trying to talk about money with a deaf prostitute.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't hear that one.
I was crying. Oh God, it was so good. And now everyone's like zoomed in on his hand. So now what he's doing, he had Tampon Tim on. He's expanded the screen so you only see maybe one hand go up, so you don't see him with the hands. I think he learned his lesson.
I saw a clip and I did notice a tighter shot, like he doesn't have the
Yes.
other person in the room anymore.
So
So,
he's on a learning curve as well. So you
yeah.
got to give him credit. He's trying, but the man looks stoned all the time. Like,
Well,
let me ask you, you're in California. Is there like a lot of allergies or something that this guy is always like glassy and bloodshot?
it might be the excessive hair gel. That could be it. He could have an allergy to hair gel. And this is a thing, Carly, I want you to know and your audience to know about Gavin Newsom. Do you guys remember President Trump coming to California to talk about the fires? Well, that's my district. I live in Area 42, we call it, which is the Pacific Palisades, Malibu, Simi Valley, all of that. And Karen Bass said, oh, no, we're going to let people clear their lots. To this day, they're not allowing people to clear their lots unless they
Oh,
go through the state contractors that
the
want to
middlemen.
charge them huge amounts of money. And we have the Army Corps of Engineers ready to go in and clean it up. It is apocalyptic. And understand, I ran on this issue in 2022 on the fire danger. The mayor of Malibu endorsed me. Even by my house where the Woolsey fire burnt, the brush is already about 10 feet high, and I am not exaggerating.
Since the
So,
fire.
well, I live in Simi. The Palisades is about a 30-minute drive, but it's still part of my district. But the brush, because they don't maintain it, we need to do controlled burns. We
Fixing.
need to put livestock in the hills, and they do nothing because they gave all this land to the California Coastal Commission. And these bureaucrats are running everything. Exactly. And Gavin's always saying how much money we have. Well, why is he asking for billions again from the federal government? Because we've got all these bureaucrats making hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they make the problem go away, then they don't get paid anymore. So that's what I see. Let's talk about these bureaucrats and woke judges. Woke judges, Carly,
Well, I
stopping the
just want to give a
president.
shout out to President Trump if he sees this. President Trump, I think it's time to pay a little visit to Gavin. Maybe skip Mar-a-Lago this coming weekend and just do a surprise visit over there. Then you could stop over and, if there's a WWE over at Las Vegas, go catch a show or something, get some ideas for the Kennedy Center. But I think you should do, while, Gavin's busy doing his little podcast, maybe you should go over there and see what's happening.
Yeah, and there is another recall started for Gavin Newsom, which is really great. Mel Gibson is behind it. Randy Economy is behind it. And of course, they're blasting Karen Bass, but the people that they're not blasting is our state assembly and state senate supermajority, where they've just kicked all the Republicans off the committee. We don't have a voice at all. And those are the ones that have given the power to these
This,
bureaucrats.
yeah,
And they're the ones,
subcontractors of the subcontractors, all the,
yeah.
like what Trump calls them, the middlemen. These are the guys that make all the money, and they do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and our state assembly and our state senate, and the assembly is California's Congress. Nobody has called out Jackie Irwin or Ben Allen, and I'm doing it here today. They need to be fired and never be in government again. And we need to break the supermajority here, or no matter who we have as governor,
It won't make a
their hands
difference.
will be tied. It's like, putting the Democrats back in 2 years. It'll be a joke.
Well, this is like the same problem like they have in Texas. You have Republicans with great standing in Texas, but you go to their Congress and it's rhinos and lefties, and they're just free reign. And you figure, but Texas is red. How is this happening?
Yeah, well,
Like,
here
and
we're just destroyed here. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Tonight, I'm actually going to a city council meeting where they're violating the president's order, and they're going to be making Ventura, which is a city on the coast here, a sanctuary state for child sex transitions.
Oh,
So they're ignoring the president and the federal government once again. I'll be at that meeting tonight and I'll be speaking out for the kids, along with my friend Taryn, who's with Moms for America.
God
But
bless.
President Trump needs to know that his orders are being ignored. And even now, I believe we still have J6ers in jail and judges putting them back in prison. Something is wrong where
But
we've got,
meanwhile, they're in an uproar because this judge wanted to turn planes around with
yeah,
Trende Waragua, or however the hell you say it, okay?
Aragua.
With terrorists on the plane
Yeah.
and a judge, and now you got a Supreme Court Justice John Roberts saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be impeaching judges," and he's flexing a little bit. Greg Gutfeld was just on the 5, and he said, "Hey, Roberts, go f yourself."
Well,
He just said it. You know,
it,
it's like who, maybe if you stood up to these people, you know.
well, part of me wonders if he's compromised. Is he
Well,
compromised?
what happened to Amy Coney Barrett? What's going on with her?
I don't know. It's like they're scared, and maybe it's because Biden let all these activists go to their homes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And those people
and there
should
was a
be
guy with a
prosecuted.
machine gun that wanted to take out, what's his name?
Kavanaugh.
Yeah,
that guy was from my city.
But that hasn't changed Kavanaugh's voting.
No. So what do you think of these judges? I'm hearing, just like Merchan, that these judges have family members working for NGOs that are actually collecting money, again, for the Democrat Party, and it stinks to high heaven. What do you think about that?
When they say follow the wives, you also have to follow the daughters.
Yes.
I mean, Laura Loomer's all over this judge and the daughter, and she's a bit of a racist, and it's always the liberal women in these families that are just out of control. And it's like it was the same thing with Biden. You had his wife and the kids, all and the whole family making, pushing him in positions. Well, meanwhile, half the family's on drugs or in some kind of trouble, but pushing him in these positions so they could keep the money coming in.
Right.
They're all compromised by these liberal, crazed women. They all got the crazy eyeballs. They're all nuts. They all support crazy schemes like the Green New Fakery.
Yeah. And now they hate Elon Musk. Now they're blowing up Teslas, the biggest EV maker in the country. While Elon is now currently, and they should be splashing down at any time.
Yeah, they splash down now. The boats are coming in to get them.
Oh, good. But,
yeah, that
it's
just
funny.
Happened.
That hasn't made the news. Why isn't the MSM talking about the fact that Elon Musk had to go rescue astronauts that Joe Biden left in space because of politics?
He left up there because it was embarrassing. He left them up there.
Yeah.
But Greg Gutfeld, I keep bringing it up because I just saw the 5, so I keep bringing up Gutfeld. But he made a really good point. These activists, these terrorists, I like to call them because they are terrorists, with a homegrowner from out of town that Joe Biden let in. They don't make anything. The left doesn't make anything.
No, they don't.
This is why they can attack everything the right has, because look at Elon, built a battery-operated car to save the planet, wants to colonize another planet in case something happens to our planet. Here's a guy that's done everything that they want.
Right, and not
and
to
they
mention,
get angry and they burn it down.
Yeah, not
the
to
left
mention
has nothing I want to burn down. They make nothing. They do nothing. They're either in politics their whole lives, or they're activists, and they make money off of stupid people.
Yeah, and let's not forget that it was Elon that brought Starlink into North Carolina when Joe Biden abandoned them as well. So, it's crazy to me. These people are freaking nuts. It's like you can tell them one narrative on the MSM, repeat it, and they believe that, and you can tell them the exact opposite the next day, and they'll flip-flop. Okay. It's like a mind virus.
Well, you have to look. Charlie Kirk does these huge gatherings at these colleges, and I've been getting the videos off of TikTok of some of the mind virus. I mean, these kids go to school and they're dumb as a stump, and their ideology is just it's mind-boggling what they say to him. And he's so patient, and he debates them, and he has the open mic. Anyone can come up, but they come up and they say these things, and I'm just like, they think that this it boggles the mind. And now that the Democrats want to get rid of Schumer, and AOC is their only hope now, are you kidding me? Seriously?
It's because she has a social media presence. That's it. And
But
I think it's very.
social media is not gonna write laws.
No, it's not. And they don't care because they give the power to the bureaucrats anyway. I mean, if you think about, you remember Biden had all these fantastic job numbers. Well, those job numbers were in the bureaucracy and in the
Yes.
government, and that's it. And to go back to these NGOs, Jill Biden was sitting on the board of Save the Children in Guatemala that were kidnapping and trafficking kids into our country. And now these same NGOs are saying, we want our money. And now there's some other judge that's ruled that we've got to fund them. I say dismantle it completely. Just get rid of the agency.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. But you have these federal judges that Joe Biden, Obama, Clinton all put on the bench. And that's how they're fighting everything in courts.
Right.
That's the lawfare. I mean, it worked for them when they put together that bogus case. Oh, now he's got 44 felonies or charges, and this, they did everything and then tried to kill President Trump. I mean, when all the lawfare failed. So they saw how that worked. That was a test run.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting that you bring that up, because I believe it was probably a few weeks ago, just everything's going so fast. Wasn't President Trump supposed to get the information on his two assassins? And wasn't he going to make that public? I think they were professional hit jobs.
Yeah. Also, they have ties to one of the guys with Ukraine. I'm just putting it out there. It's crazy that, it all started with, I call them the Pedo Project, but it's the Lincoln Project. You had, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, when the daughter was banned from doing her bikini TikToks and then didn't get on American Idol, he went into this whole thing that how would come on with his little poster board on MSDNC and CNN and say how Trump is a psychopath. And then he went into the lawfare. And we're finding out a lot of these guys that put up this lawfare were either on Epstein Island or were part of the Mueller BS.
And that brings me back to Justice Roberts.
Oh, here we go.
No, well, because I've heard it.
Yeah, and a lot of people have heard it. The adopted
Was
kids.
Justice Roberts on Epstein Island? I don't know. I really don't. I can't accuse him of it. I haven't seen the receipts on it. But I am disappointed that we got a drop that we had already seen. And I honestly think anybody that was on that island abusing kids need to be prosecuted. I don't care who they are. But
Well, that's what kills me with the whole Epstein thing. They're redacting the names of the victims. That's fine. But why haven't we seen the name of the Johns? Why are they being protected? And I think because they're so protected that a lot of these judges, Hollywood people, Supreme Court justice, maybe, talking heads on late night shows, they all feel safe and that they can say whatever they want.
Right. The one thing I'm glad about, though, is watching the lawsuits against the media and The View, and they're losing. I think it was either CNN or MSNBC just had to pay President Trump $15 million.
Also, Fannie Willis had to pay out some money too. Her little charade in Georgia is falling apart. People are paying, but you have to understand that is a drop in the bucket compared to what Trump has been through with all the lawfare. Okay, and what is it that whack job that calls her cat vagina?
E. Jean Carroll.
yeah, is he still fighting that nonsense? I mean, it's the back and forth. But see, that was their trial balloon.
Right.
So now they're using the lawfare to legislate.
Yes. And
that's what's crazy. Our country's being run by rogue judges and their activist kids and their wives.
And
that's
bureaucrats.
How our country is being run.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I was watching President Trump's speech at the DOJ, and he mentioned Andrew Weissman. He mentioned all of these people. It's absolutely crazy what has gone on. I can't believe we're out of time. My thing just came up. We got 5 minutes, girl.
Well, I just wanted to say, Trump walking into that DOJ.
Yes, but he mentioned them.
We have to bask in that glory for just a little bit. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino.
Yes.
We have to bask in that glory. I cried. When Kash was confirmed, I cried like a baby.
Yeah, well, and Dan Bongino walked away from the #1 show.
Yeah.
The #1 podcast. I mean, that man is making a sacrifice, and it shows his love for this country. And we know that he knows, and Kash knows, where all the bodies are buried. And I want to see justice. I am sick of, if these people don't pay, it's never going to end.
Look how long we've been waiting for justice.
8 years.
And it's, they call, Trump's out for retribution. MAGA's out. No, we don't want retribution. We want our country to thrive. We want people to be happy. We want other countries to thrive. We want peace in the world.
Yes.
But we want justice.
Yes,
and
we
do. Haven't seen it yet.
It is justice. It is justice.
These are bad people.
Yeah.
Or as they say, bad hombres. These are bad people. And
they tried to overthrow the president of the United States on
and
a lie.
They still are.
Yeah.
And guys, you have to get out there. We have to, midterms are right around the corner. Right around the corner. If we lose the House, they're going to impeach President Trump.
Yep.
Okay?
So
they probably already have the articles written up.
Everybody needs to be involved. You need to walk your neighborhood. You need to be bold. You need to speak out. You need to not be silent. We are not through this war yet. We're at the beginning, and we're having small battles. But I'm telling you, I really, truly believe if President Trump wouldn't have won, we wouldn't have a country today. And we are still fighting for her. We are at a precipice. We are on the ledge.
Never fight. And that doesn't mean getting in the wrestling ring with Tampon Tim, okay?
Although I think I could take him.
Nah, I want to see Tyrus just like do the Hulk on him. Puny God. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Well, Karli, any closing words, and will you tell everybody where they can find you?
Well, it's Karluska P on X and Karli Bonn'e on, Getter, Truth Social, and the Midnight Rider, Karli Bonn'e on Telegram. And I do have a TikTok, but it's Karli Bonn'e AI. They wouldn't let me do the whole word again because I've had like 10 accounts over there. This one's on the verge of going too. But I don't post that much there. If anything, I just get a lot of content from there. But guys, just keep holding up the mirror to these liars and shills. Don't lose your sense of humor. Keep your heart guarded, and may God bless you all.
Well, thanks, Karli. I love you dearly, sis, and I will see you on X. I know whenever I start feeling frustrated, I go to your page and laugh, and it's a gift.
I'm doing my job. If I'm making you laugh, I'm doing my job.
You always make me laugh.
You got to take a break from the madness, and Roseanne said she put out a post, I think a couple weeks ago. She said, it's at the point where you just laugh at them. And I've been saying, laugh at them. It's like throwing holy water on a demon. Just keep laughing at these people because they're ridiculous and they really hate when you laugh at them. They hate it.
Well, we'll keep it up. Thanks for coming on, sis. I'll see you on X. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We've got 2 guests coming in our next segment, Susan Crabtree from RealClearPolitics and Jedd McFatter from the Peter Schweizer's Government Accountability Institute. And they're going to be talking about their new book, Fool's Gold.
Welcome to the MAGA Mall. We have the largest selection of the finest quality MAGA caps and Trump caps that are made. We have over 250 hats and 1,000 different products in 28 product categories. All the caps are made from premium cotton twill. Everything on them is embroidered. As a matter of fact, in the last election cycle, we donated over 45,000 caps to Trump-endorsed candidates and conservative causes all the way across America. And you can buy any of our products by going to our website. It's at themagamall.com, like on the sign over here, and use promo code CALI, and that's for Uncover California. That will get you a 10% discount off of all of our products and also help this worthy cause. And remember, it's always a MAGA day at the MAGA Mall.
I wanted to share a new book that was just released this week, Fool's Gold: The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Written by Susan Crabtree of RealClearPolitics and Jedd McFatter from the Peter Schweizer's Government Accountability Institute, this book exposes the power players who wrecked California and now have their sights on the rest of the country. From Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom to Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi, Fool's Gold dives deep into their influence, CCP ties, and the real story behind Newsom's political pivot. With a foreword by Peter Schweizer, this book is a must-read. I want to welcome Susan Crabtree and Jedd McFatter to Uncover California. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Well, it's great to be here with you, Lori.
So, Susan, tell me, what inspired this new book for you? You've been writing for RealClearPolitics for a long time. I've been following your journalism, and I'm super excited being a Californian hearing that you've done this. What was the collaboration like, and how did you begin?
Well, I lived in D.C. and worked in D.C., cut my teeth there, and spent 23 years in journalism covering the White House and Congress. And then in 2017, I felt the call to come back to California. I was a new mom and my parents were getting older, and I love California. And I came back and I was startled by what I found in my state. And this wildfire season that turned into a wildfire year. And again, just relentless every year after year, we have these devastating and deadly wildfires, and I couldn't believe it was not a third world country. It felt like that. And then, of course, COVID accelerated all of the problems that I was feeling, the high cost of California and the hypocrisy from our leaders and shutting down churches, but leaving Hollywood, giving carve-outs to Hollywood. It just was mind-boggling to me. And then I've heard, I started doing a book proposal, and then I heard that GAI, a Government Accountability Institute, Peter Schweizer's group, would like to do a deep dive on Gavin Newsom's ties to the Chinese and the CCP. And I thought that would be a perfect collaboration. So that's why I'm got hooked up with Jedd McFatter, one of Peter Schweizer's top researchers, if not his top one. He's done a lot of work for his blockbuster best-selling books. And so I was so delighted to partner with Jedd. And we've really spent 2 years on investigating all of these central figures in California that are responsible for the failed policies. But what we've discovered is their corrupt practices behind those policies.
Right. Now, Jedd, I can tell you I ran for the state assembly in District 42, which is the Palisades and Malibu, in 2022. And I actually ran on the fire danger. I wanted to do controlled burns again. I wanted livestock in the hills. My opponent ran on, I was a MAGA extremist with Hitler ideology. And unfortunately, those people in LA won. Looking over the history of the state, I'm a huge fan of Peter. He's been on the show before. You know, I'm blown away to know that they still are not cleaning up. And yet, we see the homeless in Santa Monica now. We see these unelected bureaucrats making tons of money. And yet, Gavin Newsom can clean up San Francisco in a day for President Xi. What is your take on the CCP and the connections to the state?
All right, good question. Yeah. So in the book, one of the things we focus on is a public-private partnership that Gavin Newsom created when he was mayor of San Francisco. It basically acted as a nonprofit, and it operated out of the mayor's office of economic development. And, the goal was to recruit Chinese companies and businesses, investment to the Bay Area. And he brought in about $5.5 billion, they claim, through China SF. But in effect, it also acted as a type of conduit, right, for Chinese criminals and people connected to the CCP and stuff to also make their way through.
That's just
Yeah.
crazy.
And I could give you a couple examples of companies. In fact, one that's in the news recently is last week, a week ago today, the House of Representatives, they actually banned the circulation of a Chinese newspaper called China Daily from all the House offices. And the reason was because China Daily is owned and operated by the CCP. And in the book, what we reveal is that China Daily was one of the first companies that Gavin Newsom recruited through China SF, the same nonprofit. And he had a ceremony where he kind of announced and celebrated the fact that he was bringing them in to set up an office in San Francisco, the China Daily.
That's just crazy to me. And again, if you look at San Francisco and Oakland today, it's a zombie land. You've got all these people drugged out, homeless population that has just exploded, that again, he was able to have leave for President Xi's, visit. But Susan, what is your take on what you've seen in San Francisco, the homeless crisis, and why do you think that Gavin Newsom and the Democrats and the supermajority in the state assembly and Senate in Sacramento are allowing our state to be destroyed?
It's absolutely horrific what's going on in San Francisco. You had the Nancy Pelosi federal building being shut down, and the employees were told that they shouldn't be coming into work because it was so dangerous with these fentanyl zombies walking around and open air drug markets and crime just, completely riddled with crime. San Francisco is, and smash and grabs with people's vehicles. You can't even leave your vehicle parked there for any amount of time without fear that the windows will be broken into. So a lot of this has to do with the fentanyl problem, has to do with China and the triads that our book exposes, because the precursors for fentanyl are coming from China into Mexico and then up into California through illegal immigrants, and that serve as the drug dealers in San Francisco. In fact, they're called El Hondos. These are the drug dealers. They're actually from Honduras, many of them. And there's a mini San Francisco that we've discovered that was in Honduras. They have mansions that they send the money back to. And even if they get shut down, even if these drug dealers get prosecuted, which they usually don't, and they get sent back to Honduras, there's so many more because it's such a profitable business. And that's just one of the problems that we discovered.
Wow, and I've done a lot of shows. I've interviewed Oscar Blue several times, who's been through the Daring Gap 5 times. And I really wish our government would speak to him. He knows what's going on. We have seen, because of President Trump, our border crossings basically come to a halt. And yet we've got these activist judges now that are funded by George Soros and Arabella Advisors, which I am been talking about for 3 years. I am so excited. People are finally bringing up Arabella Advisors. What do you see happening with these drug dealers now that the pipeline's been shut off, Jedd? What can we do to stop this?
To stop the increase in use
Just
of illicit drugs in
fentanyl
California?
and the zombies on our streets. I mean, every major city in California has this problem. I live in Ventura County. You cross over into LA, it's disgusting. I mean, there is a visible view it that.
Right.
Do you get into that in the book at all, or?
Yeah, we talk. I mean, I think to really get, you have to get to the source of the problem. I think really is to try to figure out how to get it shut down. All the
Right.
precursors that are in China that are being sent over, but I also think that there could be, harsher sentencing, for Chinese drug traffickers or any of these, especially with it, who are trafficking fentanyl. But it's a tough problem to solve. But I mean, yeah, that you gotta get it at the source, and it's all this stuff's coming from China originally.
Yeah, and we've, in the meantime, we've got 350,000 children, last time I checked, missing in our country, feared sold into sex slavery. As far as the connection with Pelosi and Kamala and the rest of them, and I'm assuming the Capitol Democrats, what are you seeing, Susan, with the connections there with the CCP? And why do you think that these people would want to continue drugs flooding into our country?
Well, it's really interesting because the CCP that we looked at was mainly through what Gavin Newsom did with in his mayor's office, because it not only dealt with letting all these companies come in, but it undercut our own companies in terms of dumping. There was a solar company named Suntech that dumped its products on the California market and the US market. And Gavin Newsom was orchestrating all these deals, even between Arizona's companies and this Chinese company called Suntech. And then you had this company called, that you're very familiar with, I'm sure, it became a laughingstock, Solyndra. And the Obama administration was funding it to the tune of $500 million. So we were subsidizing our own solar company, but then Gavin Newsom was coming in and bringing Chinese companies to undercut it. So it went bust. Solyndra, we all remember that. It was a big joke line among conservatives. But the sad reality was that it was partly affected by the Chinese companies dumping their products into our markets. So all that 500 million taxpayer dollars were for naught. Then Suntech, what do you think happened to that company? Well, it had some really bogus loans overseas, and it too went bust. And then Solyndra ended up suing it. So this type of that's just one example. We have another example of real estate. As you know, real estate's a very sensitive topic of Chinese companies coming in and buying up agricultural land across the country. And guess what? Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill that was passed unanimously by the Democratic supermajority to stop this practice of allowing foreign nationals to come in and buy up our land. Jedd might be able to tell you exactly what he found about that, but it involved several Chinese wineries in and around Gavin Newsom's own vineyards.
So why don't you dig into that a little bit, Jedd? Tell us.
Yeah, and I'll add one little detail. So like this company Suntech that came in, and these Chinese solar companies that Gavin recruited in, one thing that really kind of shocked me when I was reading is that when he was describing all the incentives and everything that would be used to bring these companies in, he actually says, if you come through China SF, he said, we will walk your permits through the bureaucracy, across the bureaucracy. Now think about that. Everyone knows, like in California, these real estate projects are kind of notoriously difficult to finish, right? So many loopholes. You usually have to pay permit consultants to try to kind of expedite or get your permits through. So in a way, this nonprofit that he set up also kind of acted as a permit expediter for Chinese companies, many of which were run by criminals. We found out, and a lot of them later were prosecuted.
Wow, dig into that a little bit more. Criminals.
Yeah, well, so there was like one company, ZNL Properties, that was recruited through China SF. It was it's a branch of a large Chinese real estate company. So they recruited, and immediately they got over a dozen large real estate projects. They also bought a lot of agricultural land. But then eventually, the owner of that company, a guy who was, from China, he actually was criminally sentenced, to pay a fine of over $1 million for bribing close associates of Gavin Newsom, people that he had actually appointed previously. And then in 2017, Newsom actually, when he was running for governor, I guess, he actually posed with a photo with the same company, ZNL Properties, showing, that he was proud of them coming through China SF, and he actually received over $20,000 in donations from that company on that same day. So that's an example of how he kind of benefited personally from a group that he brought in.
Wow. It's not shocking at all to me. I was talking to Susan before you came on about the fires here. President Trump did come out here, and Susan Bass said, "Oh, we'll let you clear the land. Oh, you can get a dumpster and start clearing." It's not cleared yet. Nothing has been cleared. And I have a friend that lives in Malibu. Her home caught partial fire. And it's amazing. The Army Corps of Engineers said that they would come in and clear these lots for free. And Gavin Newsom and the Capitol Democrats stopped them. They want them to use the state approved contractors and charge them $25,000 to $100,000 just to clear their lots. It just seems that we have this fourth branch of government that is unelected, unconstitutional, and held unaccountable running the state. And I'm sorry that we see a lot about Newsom, we see a lot about Karen Bass, but nobody's holding the state assembly, which is California's Congress, accountable, or the state Senate accountable for their actions. And even if we get a new governor, their hands will be tied unless we break the supermajority. What are your thoughts on that, Susan?
When you talk about the wildfires, I think it was Exhibit A on gross mismanagement and just the terrible environmental policies that have been going on for years. The hypocrisy of blaming climate change while Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Bonta are suing the oil and gas companies, and they're blaming them for climate change. But what's going on is these wildfires, as you well know, Lori, are responsible for spewing tons of toxins into our air and eroding any gains that the state has made by its clean air policies at EV mandates over the last 2 decades. And that's according to UCLA and Stanford studies. So if they really cared about wildfires, if they really cared about climate change, and you can argue whether that's real or not, or you believe in it, but if they really cared about what they're saying, they would target the source of the wildfires. Now, of course, we know environmental policies played a role, but my big grief about this is that the utilities are not being held accountable. PG&E, as you know, responsible for the deadliest wildfire in California history. And then Gavin Newsom and his wife take money from PG&E for her gender justice films and for his gubernatorial campaign and for his ballot initiatives for the care courts. He takes all this money for them. They screen her films in the downtown San Francisco headquarters. They're associate producers listed on her films. And then he bails them out. He bails them out when they were in bankruptcy so they could survive and keep making record profits while gouging consumers, hiking their rates. And Gavin Newsom's is in control of the appointments on that utility commission that keeps okaying all the rate increases. So we wonder why we have the highest utility rates, the lowest reliability because they shut down in case of fire, which is the only thing we can do now to prevent the fires. And then they cause these terrible wildfires because SoCal Edison, as you know, is under investigation for causing the Eaton fire, which killed 17 people. I mean, this is the corruption we're talking about. This is the pay to play and the no accountability. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the utilities in California are in bed with the Democrats. It's a very odd thing that people don't realize that's unique to California.
Yeah, and Jedd, I ran for the state assembly in 2022 in the district where the Palisades fire was. And when I was growing up here, I've lived here my entire life. They stopped doing controlled burns. They stopped having livestock in the hills. And, just probably 4 years ago, they started laying 5G underground. Why can't they put power lines underground? It's such gross mismanagement. It's incredible. And when they start talking about climate change, I think about 2014 when the people voted for Proposition 1, giving our government $2.7 billion for water storage. And yet our reservoirs were empty. And they're worried about the delta smelt and pumping all the ocean water from the ocean and the delta into the ocean. Boy, did I speak that. Sorry. But anyways, is that all connected? I mean, it just seems that it's just common sense to fix these things. Yet it seems that the fixes that we need in California, they do things to keep the problems going so they continue to make money on the problem. Is that connected, Jedd?
I mean, I think it is connected. I think that does happen where the problem, you just keep it perpetuated so that there's money to be made on the problem. But I think also with that, when you have kind of a uniparty state where just one party kind of rules, it's hard to get much, feedback or pushback upon what they plan to go forward with. I mean, Susan might know some more details in California in terms of, what she sees as like a solution or how this ties in. But I mean, is there, Susan?
Well, I was talking about, when it comes to the homelessness, that's another issue.
Yeah,
You were
crack
talking
pipes
about,
and injection sites is what we get for the homeless.
yes. And then, of course, you may know this, but it was it was startling to me because it was happening in my own hometown of Redlands, California. So Shangri-La Industries, it's a funny name, like Shangri-La. They have their gold it emblazoned on their gold shovels, and they were going to they got a more than $100 million contract from the housing authority in California, the housing department, to convert motels to housing, homeless housing. And they were on their way, underway with this process, but everything came to a grinding halt last year when, lo and behold, their 20-something CFO it was discovered that he was spending all the money on his Beverly Hills rental, Bentley, a Ferrari, expensive jewelry for his girlfriend. He was just blazing through all of the money. And so guess what? We decided we'd take a look at, well, what are the connections between Shangri-La and politicians? Lo and behold, the top lobbyist for Shangri-La was an official in Lieutenant Governor's office, and also worked for the Department of Housing, and as a top official there. And then she goes into the revolving door of the lobbying world, and now is getting contracts. But what was the basis of that contract? Now Attorney General Rob Bonta is having to prosecute that company for that money. But you know as well as I do that $24 billion, probably more, probably way more, went to homeless, that was directed to the homeless, and we have nothing to account for it. The audits have found they did not know where that money went. So that's just one thing that we do know about, that was their incident where $100 million was blown by a CFO who had no business being in the business of providing housing for homeless. I mean, so many years, Gavin Newsom was housing first on the homelessness issue. Now he's trying to moderate and become a care court that they're going to have, going to try to help people with addictions and mental problems. But, even now, I don't see much changing. Nathan Hochman, as you know, he's the new district attorney for Los Angeles. The voters last year kicked out George Gaston, the soft on crime prosecutor.
Thank God.
And Nathan Hochman, he ran a piece that we quote in the book, a video of the Hall of Fame, the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. And it was a walk of shame. It was absolutely horrifying. The fentanyl zombies and other drug-addled people that were living on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. But this is what we deal with in California. It's a shame.
And there's a big connection between Hollywood and the CCP. We know that you're not allowed to talk negatively in Hollywood about the CCP. I think a while back when they did the Maverick Top Gun movie, the CCP wanted some badge taken off of Tom Cruise's coat and the Air Force uniform coat, but they got such a pushback that they were unable to do so. Did you guys get into Hollywood at all and the CCP, Jedd?
I mean, it wasn't a huge focus in the book, but I mean, it's mentioned in the book, but that is a problem. I know my boss, Peter Schweizer, where I work at GI, he's written a lot about that in previous books also. But it's not one of the main focuses of our
Right.
book. But we do have a story about, Hollywood. I mean, Susan might want to tell you about Gavin's wife.
Yeah, and I do have your book on order. I can't wait to read it. I just ordered it over the weekend, so I should be getting it soon. So go on then, Susan.
Well, the Hollywood connection that I thought was disturbing was, during the French Laundry episode where Gavin, obviously was his big downfall, embarrassing moment of hypocrisy as he was telling us not to gather for Thanksgiving. And if we did to, lower our mask between each bite, he was actually, at the French Laundry. A lot of people don't know that that was for one of his best friend's birthdays, and his best friend is a lobbyist for both Netflix and PG&E, and they were waiting for that big bailout that he did for PG&E to come through, and when it did, some of his friends, his name is Jason Kinney, got a big windfall, $400,000 for his clients, which I'm sure he took a big cut of, for that PG&E bailout. But also for Netflix, there were several carve-outs specifically for Netflix during the COVID lockdowns. When he was locking down churches, as you know, their liquor stores were open. We couldn't go to the beach, but Hollywood's giving carve-outs. People were losing their jobs left and right, as you know, and the unemployment system was in a big, huge mess. They couldn't get the unemployment checks to the real people because too many people were ripping them off. We have all that in the book, but the most egregious thing was that later, when Gavin Newsom was being recalled, you may know this, Lori, that Reed Hastings, the head of Netflix, gave him the biggest, largest donation. I think it's more than $1 million to fight that recall. And of course, he did win the recall. He pushed back the recall. And so, that was unlimited money that they can take during recall. So it's hard to fight the system here.
Well, and I do believe, doesn't Susan Rice sit on the board of Netflix, and didn't the Obamas sit on the board of Netflix?
Yes, that is more information than I know. We were looking at the California connections, but I think that's worthy of a second look for sure.
Yeah, I'd take a second look because I believe that that's true. And I think that's how the Obamas got their movie with Julia Roberts out. It was a good movie, but it was a scary movie because I was like, this could happen. What
What
was it
was it?
called? Do you guys remember the name of that movie? The one about oh, you got to watch
I
it.
remember seeing the preview. I can't remember. I like Julia Roberts.
It's a really good movie, and Ethan Hawke's in it, but it was basically about our technology being shut down, and a total cyber attack on the USA. Uh,
Mm.
oh, uh, The World We Left Behind, I believe, and the Obamas did produce that film. So, speaking of entertainment, Jed, Gavin
Uh,
Newsom's got himself a new podcast, and
oh,
he seems to want to change his opinion on things. I actually tonight am going to a city council meeting where they're going to affirm and make Ventura, the city of Ventura, a super sanctuary state for transitioning children.
mm,
So Gavin Newsom is not who he says he is he?
no, yeah, he's definitely not. And this podcast is, he can try, but I don't think it's going to help, change the image people have of him already. Everyone knows he's kind of like world class in terms of like being a narcissist. People have talked about it for years. And one thing we talk about in the book that we uncovered is how he actually, two of his private companies, helped to fund, a bronze bust of himself at San Francisco City Hall. And I think that he can bring on conservatives and various people on the show. Maybe that helps him in some way, but I definitely don't think he's going to be able to cross over to people who are already kind of fed up with, with the way he's run the state.
Well, because we all know we have lived it. And,
Exactly.
part of me is torn about our influencers being on, like Charlie Kirk. I think he did a fabulous job, especially about talking about, well, why didn't you let your son come to the studio? You let the school stay closed for 2 years. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
But he's not a moderate. He is
No.
not a moderate, and he's pretending to be. Jen Van Laar and I call him Guido the Killer Pimp because that's who we think he is from that Risky Business movie. What do you think, Susan, about the new podcast and Gavin's aspirations to be president?
Yes, everything about him is performative rather than performance based. We expose in the book, which is available on Amazon. I'm always told to get that pitch in. Um, from his college admission, which he says it was based on his baseball prowess, his athletic prowess, but really he had a letter from Jerry Brown, the previous governor, recommending him, to his launch of his wine business with Getty Oil Money, to his political rise with Willie Brown.
Right.
Everything was handed to him on a silver platter. So he doesn't think he has to provide results for the state. Thinks he can run for president via podcast while leaving his state in shambles. And it's just absurd to me that people are buying into this just because he's slick talker. Even when he was with Charlie Kirk, he was saying all the right things, right? Oh, it's about fairness. I do recognize that trans athletes is about it's not fair, it's deeply unfair, he said, direct quote. Yet went back and I looked, his wife, Gender Siebel Newsom, was just at a pro-transgender athletes in sports event. So biological men in women's sports as young as high school. She was just at a sports equity event February 25th. And he made those comments like a week or so afterwards. So this is a joke. I asked his office, hey, is he going to change the policy in California then? Like, no, obviously, okay, so we're ready. No boys in high school women's sport, girls sports, no men in college women's sports. You're going to change that, right? I asked them. No, they had no response to that question. They pointed me back to his comments and they highlighted the section about his concern about vulnerable communities. Well, so there's no change. That's just performance. Um, and if anybody's buying into that, they really aren't, they're just being gullible. And it's almost ridiculous that he thinks he can do this. His state is literally on fire. The homeless has only spiraled out of control on his tenure. He had a terrible experience with COVID. He was a hypocrite during COVID. He even even NBC was giving him a hard time for his Hollywood carve-outs. But yet he thinks because he is a quick talker that he can run for president. It's
Gavin
eye-opening.
Newsom signed into law making California a sanctuary state to transition children. People from Texas, if you're getting a divorce and your wife wants to transition your child, but you don't, your wife can take off to California and they're going to ignore the judge's order to give your child a sex change. It is insanity that he gets away with what he does. Now, there is another recall that actually Mel Gibson is heading off right now, but Gavin's going to term out soon. And let's look at the other person who I think is going to run for governor. And everything was handed to her as well, with her hometown being Oakland, California, which is, it looks like a third world country. Kamala Harris may be running for the governorship of California. What do you think about that, Jedd?
Well, I mean, I think that's seems like a joke if that's the case, but we lay out a lot of issues, that we uncovered about Kamala Harris in the book. She's notorious for refusing to give up information, very secretive. I think Open the Books, showed, we talk about it in the book, this organization Open the Books showed that when she was vice president, her office refused to ever give up payroll information, things like that. But that kind of secretive way she goes about things goes all the way back to when she was, district attorney and attorney general, the way she hid up a lot of, priest pedophilia abuse and things like this. And Susan actually has a she had an exclusive interview with someone about, something else about Kamala you might want to share, Susan.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the blockbusters on Kamala Harris was, she likes to talk about how she's very pro LGBTQ plus, and we know she's for Trump hit her very hard with the ad about how
They, them.
she was instrumental in getting California taxpayers to pay for transgender surgeries for prisoners, and she's for it for illegal immigrants too. So we have to subsidize this as California taxpayers. But we also revealed that there was a convicted pedophile for someone younger that preyed upon someone younger than 14, who then was going into breaking his parole and going into San Francisco. He was HIV positive and had a clear confession to the parole officer who arrested him that he was purposely trying to spread AIDS in San Francisco to people that responding to prostitution ads.
Won't understand. Yeah,
Yeah,
2 years ago, the Assembly and Gavin Newsom signed into law Assembly Bill 2226, which basically made it legal for any adult to have sex with a child as young as 14, as long as there's a 10-year age difference or under a
yes.
10-year. So you're talking a 24-year-old can have sex with a 14-year-old, no problem. So those are the people that we're dealing with. So you guys, we're out of time, believe it or not. Susan, do you have any closing words about your book? And then I'm going to give you a chance to as well, Jedd.
We're just so thankful that you're giving us so much time to talk about it. It should serve as a big red flashing neon red sign for the rest of the country that this is what he is going to export California's failed policy and corruption to a state and city near you, and he wants to get it to the Oval Office, which would spread it around the entire country. So we would just love it if you checked out our book on Amazon or foolsgoldbook.org. It has other places you can purchase it. And so thankful for your work, Lori, as well.
I tell you, paid volunteer for 3 years now. I walked away from my business 3 years ago, and I'm like, okay, Lord, provide. So you know how that goes. Jedd, what do you think?
No, again, I appreciate you having us on. It's been a privilege working with Susan. It's not many authors halfway through the book do you find out your co-author wins like the Conservative Journalism of the Year award. You know what I mean? So that really helped give me some confidence as we went along. But no, yeah, there's a lot to uncover in California as your podcast is named.
Hence my show,
I want to keep going in that direction.
Perfect tie-in, Jedd. Perfect.
Yes, thank you very much. So, okay, so both of you, I'll start with Jedd first. Where can people find you? Like social media, anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on X. I have a weird, handle. It's @atypical, but it's spelled with an L, so it's ATYPLCAL @atypical. And and Government Accountability Institute is where I work.
Okay, thank you so much. And Susan?
I'm at Susan Crabtree, and I work at RealClearPolitics. I'm a national political correspondent for them. So if you go to their website, RealClearPolitics.com, and you look under writers, you can see all the articles I've written for the last 6 or 7 years. And our book information can be found on foolsgoldbook.org. And you can purchase it in Amazon and other places that you can find, Barnes & Noble as well. So we're brick and mortar and online. We just so appreciate your time and your work to fix California, because we love the state and we don't want to cede it to the crazy out of control policies that have caused so much destruction.
And audience, just so you know, you can also, if you're not a reader and you don't have a lot of time to read, you could get an audio version of this as well and listen to it while you're driving down the street. I always like to do that because sometimes I'm always in a hurry. Thank you both so much for coming on. Anytime you want to come back, you are always welcome. And I hope to see you soon, and I'll be seeing you on X.
Thank you so much, Lori. You too.
All right, everybody, that's our show this week. Make sure to tune in next week when our show drops. Make sure to follow me on X at Lori Mills, 4 CA42. You can also follow our show on Rumble, Uncover Cali, and see any of our previous episodes. And if you don't mind, go to uncovercali.com, drop us $25. Keep us on the air. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
California.